Good evening to all our friends and supporters. Uh, Let me ask everyone who's watching or who's going to watch when it's going to end up on social media, be it on YouTube or other platforms that we have and our supporters have. On YouTube, please click on the button to subscribe and like. And also, if you could share this on whatever platform you use, we'll reach a lot more people. I'm here tonight with Mayor Jolowitz, and we're going to be discussing the Trump-Iran deal. This deal is horrific for Israel and for Western civilization. It is appeasement to the Islamic regime in Iran. So we're going to be discussing a lot of the issues earlier today. Former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren, was interviewed on the news. He was interviewed, and he said in Israel, there's incredible apprehension and shock at this deal, and that Benjamin Netanyahu is in panic mode right now. And the reason for that is that President Trump is demanding that Israel vacate Lebanon. And they just uncovered in Lebanon, the IDF just uncovered in Lebanon, a terror tunnel network and command center where their plans were to invade into Israel, similar to the Hamas October 7th invasion, slaughter of Israelis. Mayor, let's make sense of what's going on here.
No, that's going to be impossible. There is no sense to be made here. The number of so-called experts, and I always refer to these people as so-called experts, who understand where Israel stands today, Israel's position, seems to be a shrinking minority. And it's tragic. You have these people who have supported Israel politically. They're conservatives, they're right-wingers, they're nationalists, call them whatever you wish, who understood all along that Iran is a nation that could not be trusted. These are the people who were the vocal voices when Obama was doing his appeasement with the Iranians. What's remarkable is now that Trump has changed his mind, and he has many, many times, they all of a sudden are the loud voices actually justifying. This is a case of collective stupidity. It is, as one commentator that I listened to referred to this as a strategic defeat. There's no sense to be made of this. It is capitulation, and it's capitulation of the very people that we, with common sense, knew to be wrong yesteryear and yesterday, and yet somehow those among us have joined this chorus of saying that Israel might be too quick to jump to the trigger in responding. There was a cartoon that I saw that appeared, others might have seen it as well, and it showed a negotiating table, and on the one side of the table sitting there was a Hezbollah official holding a proclamation that said, "Death to all Jews." On the other side of the table, very close by, was Bibi Netanyahu. And sitting in between the two was J.D. Vance, who turned to Bibi in the cartoon and basically said, "Couldn't we find a halfway? Couldn't you please meet with them halfway?" Which is exactly what's being asked. I want to pull a couple of things out that I have in front of me. This is not new to anybody, but it's relevant to making the case that you and I make. I'm looking at something from the 2nd of February 2017. 2nd of February 2017 is 2 weeks after Trump became President 45. And he wrote this on as a tweet. And here's what he wrote, quite simple and quite accurate. He wrote, "Iran was on its last legs and ready to collapse until the United States came along, gave it a lifeline in the form of an Iran deal, $150 billion. Well, Trump has outdone that. He's now given them double the amount of money. Let me read you something else. I'll give you the date, June 17th, 2025. This is last year when Israel, this is the 12-day war that people were speaking about. Trump, and this is the tweet, this is his Truth Social, and there are two words on it with an exclamation mark that follows. Donald Trump, unconditional surrender. That was his demand. Nothing short, unconditional surrender. Let me go again. The 11th of January, 2026. I'll just show you the headline from the BBC. This is the headline from the BBC. Help is on its way, Trump tells Iranians as he urges them to keep protesting. And the first sentence of that particular story from BBC was a quotation also attributed to Trump that day, in which he said, Iranian patriots, and then in bold capital letters he says, keep protesting, take over your institutions, followed by 3 exclamation marks, and he says, help is on its way. And then one other, and you see how this is morphing, one other, April 7th, 2026, the day before this war began, once again on Truth Social, this is Trump, his own words on Truth Social. It's a paragraph. I'm only going to read the first and last sentence. First sentence, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. And then he attacks Iran, and he says at the very end, 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the people. God bless the great people of Iran. Well, God bless the good people of Iran. You have just betrayed them. Not only has Israel been betrayed, and I mentioned this on the radio program that I did my own on Sunday, others were betrayed as well. Israel, you and I, because of our affinity for the Jewish state, whatever, Israel was certainly betrayed or is being betrayed. The Kurds were absolutely betrayed. The Druze, to a certain degree, were betrayed. And the others who were betrayed, let's be honest, the people of Iran are being betrayed. And one might throw in, because people keep talking about this being a Jewish war, a war that Israel wants. There are other people that are being betrayed that nobody talks about. And I will right now for at least one sentence. The American people are being betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
The American people are being betrayed because this is, in essence, the essence of appeasement. It is Munich 38 all over again. And it reminds one that when Obama was running in 2008, his catchphrase was hope and change. And we conservatives all laughed at it, this foolishness, hope and change. Well, Trump has adopted hope and change as well, but it applies to Iran. What Trump has done is basically say, we hope that the Iranians will comply with what we want them to comply with, all the things that the Iranians have said that they will not agree to. And the change that he expects is that the Iranians, in doing so, the Iranian regime, I should point out, will somehow change its genocidal ideology and all of a sudden accept Jeffersonian democracy as the path to the future. We are in a serious, serious situation. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a strategic defeat. There's no question about it. And Israel is being blamed.
Right. This is the 50th anniversary of the raid on Entebbe, and
on the Hebrew calendar.
On the Hebrew calendar, yes.
Yeah.
And Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, honored his brother Yoni Netanyahu, visited his grave, and took an oath that he will not cave in, he will not capitulate to the pressure being exerted on Israel. Terror tunnels discovered on our border from Hezbollah, financed by Iran.
Right.
Command centers in there. Hamas terrorists inside these tunnels. The Trump administration wants Netanyahu to order the army to vacate and allow the Lebanese army to take care of this. The Lebanese army, by the way, that has serious components of Hezbollah in it,
That's right.
as well as in their government,
That's right.
who are members of the parliament in Lebanon. Iran wants to create distance and linkage between Lebanon and Iran in this deal. Mayor, it's one thing to be alone, and that is how I see it, and I believe that's exactly how you see it. What is Israel to do right now?
Let me begin with what you mentioned about Bibi Netanyahu. When he was commemorating the 50th Yortzeit, the date of the death of his brother, and he was quite bombastic in his determination, Israel will not be pushed to make a mistake. And yet there are right-wing critics in Israel with some measure of concern who are saying that sometimes his actions don't match his promises, especially given the fact that one can actually officially say that the campaign for the election in Israel, which is scheduled to be before October 27th, that this is part of the game that he's been playing. We hope that he is a man of his word and maintains exactly that. South Lebanon, Southern Lebanon is not to be vacated. There's another thing that we need to be concerned about, and that is the American attitude of being purposefully blind or purposefully oblivious to what the Iranians are saying. The very day that, which was yesterday, 36 hours ago, when Vice President J.D. Vance was flying to Switzerland to all of a sudden broker this mediation, this memorandum of misunderstanding, all of a sudden, and mind you, Marco Rubio, of course, who's quite pro-Israel, who knows that this is wrong, has been basically sidelined. All of a sudden, J.D. Vance, who's a strong proponent of it. When J.D. Vance was in flight going to Switzerland, at that very moment, the Iranian social media, controlled by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, came out and basically said, we have not forfeited our right and our determination to destroy the Israel. They came out and said that. When J.D. Vance, and we've all seen it, appeared in Switzerland, he was spat upon. Qatar didn't recognize him. The Iranians walked right by him. They didn't want to shake his hand. He asked for a photo op. They said no. He's being mocked because they understand that this is a paper tiger. They understand that Trump is concerned first and foremost about the price of gas, and they have him exactly where they want. When J.D. Vance was asked if he was not embarrassed at the humiliation that was placed upon him, his comment was, well, they do things a little different than we do. And he said, if this is to be productive, he actually said they need to stop their trash talk. Imagine, this is a nation which had financed 3 proxies who were launching missiles into Israel. And he's sort of telling them, you know what, cut back your trash talk because you're giving Israel reason to do what we don't approve, and that is to retaliate. It's embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. The whole notion of J.D. Vance being the spokesman is already a concern. And all over the internet, and people haven't seen it, I'm sure you've seen it, floating around are comments that were made by J.D. Vance just a couple of years ago before he had his beard. And when he had a few extra pounds, he looked like a chipmunk with the acorns in his cheek. And he was basically calling Donald Trump a nut job.
Yep.
A nut job. But Trump seems to be forgiving of the people who think that he's wonderful. Israel is in a very serious situation, and it needs to understand that the very people who served as its friends in order to placate Donald Trump's temperament are actually throwing Israel under the bus. I'll give one example, something that I saw on television about 20 minutes before you and I came on air. Michael Waltz, a wonderful supporter of Israel for so many years in Congress, wonderful, wonderful person, pro-Israel, who actually was denied a more senior cabinet position because he was considered to be too pro-Israel, that he might have been giving Israel information, which, by the way, they're talking about the fact that J.D. Vance has actually been feeding information to Erdogan of Turkey. That's a different subject right now for the moment.
Right.
Mike Waltz comes on Fox News and he talks about that these people, I think he's talking about you and me. He was saying that these people who are the skeptics seem to forget that everything that Trump does and a success. And he mentioned Venezuela as an example. Not that one should ever compare Venezuela to Hezbollah or Iran. And in doing so, he brings up another success. And he says Gaza, which you and I have mentioned time and again in this broadcast, is one of the signature failures of American foreign policy, one that they browbeat Israel to accept. So he basically said, what was the success in Gaza? He goes, we got the hostages returned, some living and some dead. Now, you may just consider that, some living and some dead. What a wonderful accomplishment. Well, the purpose of the war with Gaza wasn't simply to rescue the hostages. It was to end this Nazi threat to Israel, as was evidenced on October 7th. But all of a sudden now we're talking about Gaza being a success when it is the very proof that a ceasefire is a disaster for Israel, and that the Hamas forces have not disarmed and have not demilitarized, and they still run 40% of Gaza. So for him to bring up Gaza as a success is absolutely the wrong thing to do. One last comment. And Mike Waltz is a good guy.
Yeah.
It's the way they spin it. On Fox News, and the reason I'm citing Fox News is because we know where CNN and the others stand, MS. These are the good guys. Ostensibly, these are the pro-Israel voices. They were defending, I think it was Laura Ingraham, was defending that the Americans know what they're doing, they can handle it. And
Sure.
as Trump said, if we have to go back. And in the background were pictured 14 leaders of Hezbollah in Iran who've been decapitated, who are no more. And she used that as a backdrop, as a graphic to illustrate if America wants to take care of business, America can take care of business, to which I am sitting in my living room yelling, none of those 14 were killed by the United States. Every single one was taken out by Israel,
Right.
the nation that America now puts handcuffs on.
Right.
The truth ought to count for something, and it doesn't. It's a tragedy.
I'd like to add something to that about these promises from President Trump. He promised also that on his watch, very quickly, he's going to end the Russia-Ukraine war. He said it repeatedly. He embarrassed Zelensky at the White House. He took pride in that. He said he could speak to Putin and he could get a deal fast. Well,
One day.
yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah. I want to mention another thing about one day, this juxtaposition of realities, which is quite upsetting. Donald Trump, while he was at the G7 Economic Forum in France, was asked what happens if the Iranians don't abide by the expectations that you place. And his response three times that I saw, he might have done it again that I didn't see. He said, if that's the case, we're going to go back to bombing them. And he said, and I can end Iran in one day. And he emphasized in one day. The following day, J.D. Trump is on with Megyn Kelly, an Israel hater, and they're sort of laughing at the fact that Israel has been sort of sent to the back room not to allow an opinion on a fate that it now has to face. And J.D. Vance was asked, and he said, you know, these people who oppose the war, you know what they are? They are people who love endless wars. It's a term he used. He used it also 3 times, endless wars. And she echoed the sentiment. And he said, these people want endless wars, and therefore they oppose what we're doing, this memorandum of misunderstanding, to which I am watching this, and I'm saying, no, JD, we don't want an endless war. We want for Trump to do what Trump said he's capable of doing. We want the war to end in one day. In one day. Your own president said yesterday, I can end Iran in one day. And yet they talk about this endless war now. You can't have it both ways. And it comes down to one thing. It's a betrayal. It's an absolute betrayal. And as I said, of Israel, of the Kurds, of the Iranian citizens in Iran, and of American principles of moral imperative when fighting wars. That too is a betrayal, and it needs to be spoken as such.
The Israeli intelligence is talking about plans to carry out a similar October 7th massacre
Yeah.
in Eilat from the Houthis and their supporters.
Cavemen.
Okay, so, here's the deal. JD Vance says, like we're all warmongers. We just want war. Well, we just don't want Israel surrounded by the proxies of Iran, heavily funded by Iran, directed by Iran to fire on Israel repeatedly. They're the ones who want the war, and we have to stop it. And it's that simple. And if no one is going to stop it, we have to stop it. And obviously no one will. And on the 50th anniversary of the Entebbe rescue mission, Israel did it. No one else did it. Israel rescued the hostages in Entebbe in a daring, brilliant military move that no other country has been able to do. Israel did it alone. And Israel, again, alone today.
Right. The Entebbe rescue happened to come exactly in the bicentennial, on the very day, the 200th anniversary of American independence, and it was hailed in America. Israel is a little state that was viciously attacked, terrorism and everything else, and Israel stood up and did it. This notion that we hear from these detractors of Israel, that the United States did this, and the United States, J.D. Trump is in the forefront of talking about it. In my lecture that I did a few days ago, I do a weekly lecture, I listed, I think it was 8, and I could have listed a lot more, 8 significant military accomplishments, beginning with Israel's War of Independence in 1948-49, when Israel was boycotted. There was an embargo of American support in 1967, and I brought it current. Accomplishments which were incredible things that Israel did, not only without American support, in almost every case without American knowledge that it was being done. In 1981, for example, when Israel bombed the Osirak nuclear installation in Iraq, the Americans were unaware of it. And when they found out about it, they criticized Israel. Not giving credit today in hindsight that the war, the Gulf War that the Americans fought, they would have been fighting against in Iraq that had a nuclear bomb.
Right.
The question that's asked, logical to what we're discussing right now, is in 3 years, Donald Trump is going to be golfing at the Doral Country Club in Miami.
Yep.
And someone's going to come up to him. I mentioned this on the radio. Someone's going to come up to the ex-President Trump and say, oh, by the way, did you hear the Iranians exploded a nuclear bomb today, a successful test? What's your comment? And his comment is going to be, well, it didn't happen on my watch. And he's going to follow that by saying, if you want an opinion on this, why don't you go to President J.D. Vance?
Right.
That's what's going to happen. And Israel is going to be confronted with an American ex-President Trump golfing in Florida, the Iranians with a bomb, and the world unaware of the fact that they were the ones who pressured Israel to get in the situation. Bibi, as you said, has to stand up now. This is the moment where future history will judge you by what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mayor, thank you very much. We'll take it up hopefully later this week. We're watching this. All Jews are watching this right now. And please God, the Prime Minister of Israel has the internal strength to stand up to the pressure, and the IDF will do what has to be done and destroy the enemies of Israel.
Right.
Thank you very much. Everyone watching, please share this on whatever social media platform you use. We'd appreciate it. Mayor, thank you very much.